I'm not going. You're the best man. Hey, Taurus, how you doing? You're what I want. Ha ha ha. You're so funny. How's your day going, Taurus? Happy holy day. We about to read the last part of How to Meet Your Strawman. And it's a good day. You ready? I'm ready. I'm great. I'm feeling good, feeling great. All right, so an overview of a political con job. If this has all been, in fact, hold on, let me do something because Facebook be hating on your girl. They be posting my video all private, like everybody need to hear about how to meet your strong man. Denny, I love you. Hello, my baby. I love you too. We're learning how to meet your strong man. We've been reading this book. Today's the last day of reading this one. Because we're finished and we are going to read the UCC code book next. And so hopefully you guys stay tuned. You guys can purchase these books on Amazon. All three of them are $15 all together. If you guys are interested in declaring your nationality, welcome to the KKK meeting, Knowledge Keepers Club, gang, gang, gang. We out here. Oh, on Plenty of Fish, I call this the KKK meeting. That's why it be all these different kind of people coming in here because they think they come to a KKK meeting. I find it hilarious. It's the Knowledge Keepers Club, gang up in this thing. Pisces, Virgo, Cancer, Moon, enter the chat. You know what's up? The eclipse is for you, my good sister. So the next eclipse on September 18th is Pisces, Virgo eclipse. And then the eclipse after that is Libra, Virgo. So, tap into that one. September 18th and October 2nd. Check into my planetary forecast. I got into that a little bit. I'm also doing eclipse readings right now. Gang. Okay, so let's talk about the book. Let's read the book. Hey, Quan. He said, yo. An overview of a political con job. If this has all been a lot of new information for you, then it might be useful to have a thumbnail sketch of the outrageous confidence trick which is being played on you. So here it is for your local area, and the same situation is found in almost every other area as well. It all started before most people were born. It started with two brothers deciding to run a scam which would make them the richest people in the world and rig things so that everybody else worked for them without being aware of that fact. Even though they are literally brothers, in order to distinguish between them, we will call them Mr. Government and Mr. Banker, because that is what they needed to become in order to run this scam. New moon in Cancer right now. Yep, new moon in Cancer. Burning my 0-degree Cancer ass out. Yeah, you tired. My son is a Cancer moon. He over here in his shell as well. Peace to both of y'all, because I feel great. But Chiron, my Cancer, Chiron is in Cancer for me, and my Pluto is in the 4th house. So this is like this is the space where I gotta face music when Cancer shit happens. I gotta face music. Mr. Government set up a very clever system of interlocking commercial companies, choosing names for them which made them look like official government bodies, while in reality, they are just ordinary companies like any high street shop. In order to strengthen the illusion, Mr. Government hires people to work for him and gives them names like congressman or member of parliament or some other meaningless working title. He employs most of them to sit around and argue with each other from time to time. He swaps them around by asking members to the public to vote for who will be his employees for the next few years. This is actually very clever because it makes members of the public believe that they're voting and the voting makes a difference, while Mr. Government knows that it doesn't, as he sets company policy and he still makes all the decisions, and he really couldn't care less who happens to be his employees at any given moment in time. Meanwhile, his brother, Mr. Banker, has set up two commercial companies of his own. One he calls the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England, or some other suitable name for his particular location. And yes, there are actually more than two brothers in this family. The other company he calls the Mint. He owns both, so he decides exactly what each will do. The action starts, and Mr. Government needs money, which to pay his employees. So he asks his brother, Mr. Banker, to provide some. And this is where the fun part starts. Our trusty Mr. Banker invents the money and pretends that he has plenty, although he actually has none. He lends a large amount, say $1 million to his brother, Mr. Government, and this costs him nothing as it doesn't even exist, and it's just the first step in the scam. His brother, Mr. Government, now says that he has a national debt of $1.2 million, which will increase by 20% or one-fifth every year if not paid off completely. His cunning plan of calling it a national debt makes people think that their country owes somebody something. The reality is that nobody owes anybody anything. Good, isn't it? Very clever. Without using any of the value, the brothers have persuaded people that A, they have a government, which they don't, and B, that their government has borrowed money for essential services, so their country is in debt to some kindly lender, which it isn't. Very slick. These brothers aren't stupid. Yeah, I wish I was one of these brothers. They got the keys. Next, Mr. Government pays members of his staff with pieces of paper called checks, and he sends them to his brother, Mr. Banker, to get these pieces of paper exchanged for money. But Mr. Banker does not have any money, so instead he gets his company, the Mint, to print other pieces of paper called currency, and he passes these out in exchange for his brother's checks, swapping pieces of paper for other pieces of paper. Welcome to the Knowledge Keepers Club. What is the value of these pieces of paper? The cost of the printing paper and ink. At this point, what have the brothers gained? Well, they have got a large number of people working for them doing whatever they say, and this is costing them nothing. But that is just the first step. Now Mr. Government takes back 80% of what he paid to his employees in the form of taxation. After all, the country is in debt, and so is Mr. Government. And so Mr. Government has to take money from everybody in order to repay the country's debt, hasn't he? Why does everybody have to pay? Because his employees say so? So they invent statutes and all kinds of charges designed to move money from ordinary people into the pockets of Mr. Government, who promptly pays most of it to his brother, Mr. Banker, as the repayment of borrowing nothing and interest on the amount is borrowed. Where does the tax money paid by ordinary people come from? It is paid to them to compensate them for the time and effort which they put into when working. This is real money, backed by the goods and services provided by the people who do the work. This is something of real value, and yet 80% of those valuable assets are taken back from them by the government. Why do people let this happen? Because they think that they have no choice and they will be put in prison if they don't. What they do not understand is that paying tax is optional, and they don't have to do it if they don't want to. Mr. Banker is doing very well out of this. His brother is paying him lots of real money in exchange for the fake money which he invented. So he decides to expand his business and do exactly the same thing to as many people as he can. He offers to lend money to people which he will invent and conjure up out of nothing in order to allow them to buy whatever they want. We will skip the straw man here and just focus on the actual transaction offered by Mr. Banker. A house purchaser comes to Mr. Banker looking for a loan of $100,000. This is a deal on which Mr. Banker can't lose no matter what happens, so he will approve the deal unless he has some very good reason not to. After all, it's not going to cost him anything, and he will be paid with real money gained through real work done by real people. The deal is for 17% interest per year for 25 years. If the deal runs for the full 25 years, then the borrower may well pay back as much as $433,557, according to a professional mortgage calculator result. That is, you pay back 4 times what you borrowed, even though what you were given was fake money, and what you pay back is real labor-backed money. That's why it's time to value yourself. Stop valuing yourself on a fake-ass piece of paper, but, I'll keep reading. Anyway, but as Mr. Government takes 80% of what you earn, before you get to pay the mortgage, you need to earn $2,167,785 in that 25-year period, as Mr. Government will take $1,734,228 of it away from you in direct and hidden taxes. And to add insult to injury, Mr. Government will take a large chunk of that $1,734,228 and give it to his brother, Mr. Banker, in supposed payment of the fake national debt. So the house purchaser pays several times the borrowed amount of money using his real money. And it gets worse. Mr. Banker and Mr. Government make sure that not enough currency is issued for people to be physically capable of paying the interest on their loans, as there just isn't enough currency in the entire community, in the entire economy for that to be possible. This is another cunning ploy. The people who earn most will not have a problem, but most of the people will have great difficulty and will have very little left after paying their mortgage. The slightest financial problem, such as losing a job, can put the average person in a position where he can't pay the amount demanded. When that happens, and it has to happen in a substantial number of cases, then Mr. Banker tries to take the property using some of his brother's statutes, which are not law, to justify his debt. His to justify his theft, excuse me. He may even manage to send in bailiffs ahead of seizing the property and seize many of the house purchaser's personal possessions as well. What the house purchaser needs to remember is that the original loan was fake and that Mr. Banker never put up anything of any value, and the purchaser was never told the real amount that he would have to repay. A genuine contract was never drawn up, and in reality, it is not the human borrower which is being asked for the repayment. Want to know what Mr. Banker thinks of any borrower? For evil to triumph, all that is necessary is for good men to do nothing. Why did the United States attack Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Yemen? Why are U.S. operatives helping to destabilize Syria? And why is the United States government so intent on taking down Iran in spite of the fact that Iran has not attacked any country since 1798? And what's next? What are we headed for? When you look at the current trajectory that we are on, it doesn't make any sense at all if you evaluate it on what we're taught in school. And it doesn't make any sense if you base your worldview on the propaganda that the mainstream media tries to pass off as news. But it makes perfect sense once you know the real motives of the powers that be. In order to understand these motives, we first have to take a look at history. In 1945, Britain, with the agreement, established the dollar as the world's reserve currency, which meant that the international commodities were priced in dollars. An agreement which gave the United States a distinct financial advantage was made under the condition that the dollars would remain redeemable for gold at a consistent rate of $35 per ounce. The United States promised not to print very much money, but this was on the honor system because the Federal Reserve refused to allow any audit or supervision of its printing presses. In the years leading up to 1970, expenditures in the Vietnam War made it very clear to many countries that the U.S. was printing far more money than it had in gold, and in response, they began to ask for their gold back. This, of course, set off a rapid decline in the value of the dollar. The situation climaxed in 1971 when France attempted to withdraw its gold and Nixon refused. On the 15th of August, Nixon made the following announcement. I have directed the Secretary of Treasury to take the action necessary to defend the dollar against speculators. I directed Secretary Connolly to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets except in amounts and in conditions determined to be in interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States. This was obviously not a temporary suspension as he claimed, but rather a permanent default. And for the rest of the world who had entrusted the United States with their gold, it was outright theft. In 1973, President Nixon asked King Faisal of Saudi Arabia to accept only U.S. dollars in payment for oil and to invest any excess profits in the U.S. Treasury bonds, notes, and bills. In return, Nixon offered military protection for Saudi oil fields. The same offer was extended to each of the key oil-producing countries, and by 1975, every member of OPEC had agreed to only sell their oil in U.S. dollars. The act of moving the dollar off gold and trying it to foreign oil instantly forced every oil importing country in the world to maintain a constant supply of Federal Reserve paper. And in order to get that paper, they would have to send real physical goods to America. This was the birth of the petrodollar, which we now know when you look up bricks. Hey, Old Town. What you now know when you look up BRICS or whatever, BRICS is a conglomerate of the nations finally coming together, which happened with like 2 years ago or so. They're coming together to denounce the petrodollar. They no longer want to use the petrodollar. So I'm low key happy for them. Like, fuck this bank. But anyway, paper went out, everything American needed came in, and the United States got very, very rich as a result. It was the largest financial con in recorded history. The arms race of the Cold War was a game of poker. Military expenditures were the chips, and the U.S. had an endless supply of chips. With the petrodollar under its belt, it was able to raise the stakes higher and higher, outspending every other country on the planet until eventually U.S. military expenditure surpassed that of all the other nations in the world combined. The Soviet Union never had a chance. The collapse of the communist bloc in 1991 removed the last counterbalance to American military might. The United States was now an undisputed superpower with no rival. Many hoped that this would mark the start of a new era of stability and peace. Unfortunately, there were those in high places who had other ideas. Within that same year, the U.S. invaded Iraq in the first Gulf War, and after crushing the Iraqi military and destroying their infrastructure, including hospitals and water purification plants, crippling sanctions were imposed, which prevented Iraq's infrastructure from being rebuilt. These sanctions were then initiated by Bush Sr. and sustained throughout the entire Clinton administration, and lasted for over a decade and were estimated to have killed more than 500,000 children. The Clinton administration was fully aware of these figures. A TV interviewer speaking to Madeleine Albright, Secretary of State for Clinton, asked, "We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children that died in Hiroshima. And is the price worth it?" To which Madeleine Albright replied, "I think that this is a very hard choice. We think that the price is worth it." Miss Albright, what exactly was worth killing 500,000 children for? In November of 2000, Iraq began selling its oil exclusively in euros. This was a direct attack on the dollar and the U.S. financial dominance, and it wasn't going to be tolerated. In response, the U.S. government, with the assistance of mainstream media, began to build up a mass propaganda campaign claiming that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and was planning to use them. In 2003, the U.S. invaded, and once they had control of the country, oil sales were immediately switched back to dollars. This is particularly noticeable as switching back to the dollar meant a 15 to 20% loss in revenue due to the euro's higher value. It doesn't make any sense at all unless you take the petrodollar into account. And all y'all was cheering because y'all got low gas prices, and that's why y'all ain't shit. Anyway, on 2nd March of 2007, U.S. General Wesley Clark said, "So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, 'Are we still going to go to war with Iraq?' And he said, 'Oh, it's worse than that.' He said, as he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper and he said, 'I just got this down from upstairs today,' meaning from the Secretary of Defense's office. 'This is a memo which describes how we are going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting off with Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.' Let's take a look at the events of the past decade and see if you can see a pattern. In Libya, Gaddafi was in the process of organizing a bloc of African countries to create a gold-based currency called the dinar, which they intended to use to replace the dollar in that region. U.S. and NATO forces helped to destabilize and topple the government in 2011, and after taking control of the region, U.S. armed rebels executed Gaddafi in cold blood and immediately set up a Libyan central bank. Iran has been actively campaigning to pull oil sales off the dollar for some time now, and it has recently secured agreements to trade its oil in exchange for gold. In response, the U.S. government, with mainstream media assistance, has been attempting to build international support for military strikes on the pretext of preventing Iran from building a nuclear weapon. In the meantime, they established sanctions which they admire are aimed at causing a collapse of the Iranian economy. And niggas still ain't shit because y'all be all proud. Oh, happy Veterans Day. Happy Labor Day. No, fuck that. Them military ain't shit. They fight for the bank. They ain't fighting for no people. Anyway, Syria is Iran's closest ally, and they are bound by mutual defense agreements. The country is currently in the process of being destabilized with the covert assistance from NATO, and although Russia and China have warned the United States not to get involved, the White House has made statements in the past month indicating that they are considering military intervention. And that makes sense why you see Putin in it's Putin in Korea. It's not so much China. I haven't really been in. Have y'all been in tune with China? What China doing? I be minding my business. I'm gonna work on it. I'm gonna get better, y'all. It should be clear that military intervention in Syria and Iran isn't just being considered. It is a foregone conclusion. Just as it was in Iraq and Libya, the U.S. is actively working to create the context which gives them the diplomatic cover to do what they have already planned. The motive for these invasions and covert actions becomes clear when we look at them in their full context and connect the dots. Those who control the United States understand that even if a few countries begin to sell their oil in another currency, it will set off a chain reaction and the dollar will collapse. They understand that there is absolutely nothing else holding up the value of the dollar at this point, and so does the rest of the world. But instead of accepting the fact that the dollar is nearing the end of its lifespan, the powers that be have made a calculated gambit. They have decided to use the brute force of the U.S. military to crush each and every state in Africa and the Middle East. That in itself would be bad enough, but what you need to understand is that that is not going to end with Iran. China and Russia stated publicly and in uncertain terms that they will not tolerate an attack on Iran or Syria. Iran is one of their key allies, one of the last independent oil producers in the region, and they understand that if Iran falls, then they will have no way to escape the dollar without going to war. And yet the United States is pushing forward in spite of the warnings. What we are witnessing here is a trajectory which leads straight to the unthinkable. It is a trajectory which was mapped out years ago in full awareness of the human consequences. But who was it that put us on this course? What kind of psychopath is willing to intentionally set off global conflict, which will lead to millions of deaths just to protect the value of a fiat paper currency? It obviously isn't the president. The decision to invade Syria, Libya, and Iran was made long before Obama had risen to the national spotlight, and yet he is carrying out his duties just like the puppets who preceded him. So who is it that pulls all the strings? Often the best answers to the questions like this are found by asking another question: cui bono? Who benefits? Obviously, those who have the power to print the dollar out of thin air has the most to lose if the dollar were to fall. And since 1913, that power has been held by the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a private entity owned by a conglomerate of most powerful banks in the world, and the men who control those banks are the ones who pull the strings. To them, this is just a game. Your life and the lives of those around, your life and the lives of those you love are just pawns on their chessboard. And like the spoiled 4-year-old who tips over the board to the floor when he starts to lose, the powers that be are going to start a World War III to keep control of the global financial system. Remember that when those wars accelerate and extend, remember that when your son or your neighbor's son comes back in a flag-draped coffin, remember that when they point the finger at the new boogeyman because the madmen who are running the show will take this as far as you allow them to take it. So how much time do we have left? It's a question which I hear constantly, but it is the wrong question. Asking how much time we have left is a passive posture. It is the attitude of a prisoner who is waiting to be taken out in a ditch and shot in the back of the head. What are our chances? Can we change course? Also the wrong question. The odds don't matter anymore. If you understand what we are facing, then you have a moral responsibility to do everything in your power to alter the course we are on regardless of the odds. It is only when you stop basing your involvement on the chances of your success that success actually becomes possible. To strip the ill-begotten power from financial elites and to bring these criminal cartels to justice will require nothing less than a revolution. The government is not going to save us. The government is completely infiltrated and corrupt to the core. Looking to them for a solution at this point is utterly naive. There are 3 stages of revolution, and they are sequential. Stage 1 is already underway. Stage 1 is ideological resistance. In this stage, we have to actively work to wake up as many people as possible about what is happening and the direction we are headed. All revolutions originate from a shift in the mindset of the population, and no other meaningful resistance is possible without it. Success in this stage of the game can be measured by the contagion of ideas. When an idea reaches critical mass, it begins to spread on its own. It seeps into all levels of society. In order to achieve that contagion, we need more people in this fight. We need more people speaking up, making videos, writing articles, and getting this information onto the national and international stage. And we especially need to reach the military and the police. Stage two is civil disobedience, also known as nonviolent resistance. In this stage, you put your money where your mouth is, or more accurately, you withhold your money and your obedience from the government, and you do everything in your power to bring the gears to the state at halt. Practiced in mass, this method alone is enough to bring a regime to its knees. However, if it fails at this stage, stage three is inevitable. Stage three is direct physical resistance. Direct physical resistance is the last resort, and it should be avoided and delayed as long as possible, and only invoked when all other options have been thoroughly exhausted. There are those who talk tough and claim that they will resist when the time comes, but what they fail to realize is that if you are inactive during the first two stages and you save your efforts for the last resistance, you will fail because you ain't educate nobody. You just out here wanting to fight. When the Nazis in Germany were moving from door to door, dragging people out of their homes, that was the time to fight back physically. But due to the lack of ideological resistance and civil disobedience leading up to that moment, even an armed uprising would have likely failed at that point. An armed uprising can only succeed if the people have established an attitude of active resistance. And active resistance is only possible after their minds have broken free from the mainstream propaganda. If you want to fight back, then it's now or never. You're not going to get another chance, and the stakes are far higher than they were in Nazi Germany. All right, I want you to read the closing good news, but you got to come closer so you could be in the mic. Seriously?
One of the major attacks mounted against you is to con you out of your money. Much of this is government tax on fuels which are burnt to provide energy, energy for transport, energy for heating, cooling, lighting, cooking, washing, drying, communications, entertainment. A major effort has been put into attempting to prevent you from finding out the simple fact that we are all surrounded by limitless energy, and more importantly, preventing us from finding out how to tap into and use that energy. Tight control has been kept on educational establishments, publishing, and mainstream news services. Patents have been suppressed, inventors harassed, intimidated, and forced into silence by any available means. The reality is that energy can be pulled from thin air. Using an aerial, the Hermann-Pauschen produced systems, which provides more than 100 kilowatts of electrical energy, needs no input whatsoever. There is nothing magical about this, as this energy comes from the ionosphere, which the sun continuously charges. So sorry folks, no magic, just practical engineering. Energy can be pulled from the ground as the earth is a vast reservoir of energy. Energy can be taken from gravity by various methods, including just nudging weights sideways as they fall, powering a large wheel which turns a generator. Energy can be drawn from changes in inertia, as just spinning a flywheel which drives a generator allows that generator to power both the flywheel and other items of household equipment. Ordinary unmodified petrol generators can provide kilowatts of electrical power by splitting water into its component gases and using those gases to power the generator. Here, the generator both splits the water and powers the additional equipment. It is possible to build a simple motor or generator which produces far more electrical power than is needed to make it run. Robert Adams of New Zealand demonstrated this with quite small modules, which had a minimum of 8 times more output power than input power, while more advanced modules have outputs hundreds of times greater than the input power. We are told, either tongue in check or based on complete ignorance, that permanent magnets can't do any useful work. Dietmar Holl was shown that Anybody can build a simple rotor drum, which is made to spin by using permanent magnets. We are told that no electronics-driven transformer can output more than it's used to drive it. Thane Hines has demonstrated that this is not true. While by adding a permanent magnet to the transformer, Lawrence Sung has shown that with just a simple iron frame, much more power can be drawn from the output than is needed to operate the frame. The supposed limits taught by education establishments are based on electric transfer methods in transformers running at low speeds such as 50 or 60 cycles per second. However, if the transfer is made to be magnetic rather than electrical, the cycle exceeds 20,000 cycles per second, and especially if the voltage is raised to a much higher level. The output power from a simple motionless device can be kilowatts more than the input power. There are many, many ways to provide electrical power where no fuel is burned, and where you do not have to pay for whatever energy you happen to draw from the system. There's no need for you to do any of this, but it is important that you understand that it can be done. And there is actually no need for you to be charged for every watt of electrical energy you choose to use. Please download the ebook below. It is free, and above all else, please understand fully that this technology has been suppressed for years for personal gain in more than 100 years.
Nice.
You could read out the HTTP.
All right, so here's some facts you may not know. The United States of America was incorporated in London in 1783. The United States of America is a territory of Great Britain. The colonists did not win the Revolutionary War. The British troops did not leave until 1796. I knew that shit, but I didn't have no proof of it. I just always knew that shit. King George III of England financed both sides of the Revolutionary War. Also knew that shit. That's why the library company, then we look at that, King Charles chartered that. You know what chartered means? Privatized.
Instead of public.
Yep. Why does King Charles still own a library in the state of New Jersey? He ain't even here no more. That nigga dead. The IRS is not a U.S. government agency. It is a debt collection agency of the International Monetary Fund. That one. IMF is an agency of the United Nations. The U.S. has not had a treasury since 1921. New York City is defined in the Code of Federal Regulation, CFR, as United Nations. Ooh. Let me read that one again. If the IMF agency is an agency of the United Nations. The IRS is a debt collection agency of the IMF. New York City is defined in the Code of Federal Regulations as United Nations. No judicial courts nor judges have existed in America since 1789. Executive administrators, not judges, enforce statutes and codes. You know what that made me think of? That made me think of Forex trading, because you go by New York hour, like specifically New York, not East Coast, it's New York. You cannot use the U.S. Constitution to defend yourself because you are not a party to it. You own no property. Oh yeah, that's a big one, number 8. You cannot use the U.S. Constitution to defend yourself because you are not a party to it. Because you see a lot of these people that represent the Moorish science empire, whatever, they be telling you walk around with the Constitution, whatever. They setting you up because they want you on their shit. Anywho. Oh hey y'all. You own no property. Slaves cannot own property. Read the deed to the property that you think you own. You are listed as a tenant. We are slaves and own nothing, not even who we think are our children. Great Britain is owned by the Vatican. The Pope can abolish any law in the United States. We are human capital. We are enemies of the state. Excuse me. Your name, when spelled in all capital letters, is a corporation, a Sesta KV Trust. And I got into the Sesta KV Trust really heavy. What it is once upon a time, people used to go to the supermarket, the market, and take them a couple weeks, or they were sailors and they would sail to other countries and they'd be gone for a few months. And it was the assumption that they were lost when they were out there. So like, say if I left my land, I had to go to the market and I was riding a horse and it takes me about a week to get there and a week to get back. Well, somebody has to be the trustee to my land in my absence, right? So I appoint my child as my trustee, and now I'm the Sesta KV. Like it's a Sesta KV trust, assuming that I died until I come back and say, "Hey, I'm alive." But apparently, because they convinced y'all all came on fucking boats. All of y'all is lost out at sea, and y'all on water law, and the Sesta KV trust applies to you. To where like, oh, all y'all lost out at sea, we don't know when y'all coming back, and that's why you got to go through the proper paperwork of saying, hey, I'm alive. I was born alive. I know what y'all talking about. This is my birthright. Anyway, the people do not include you and me since our names are in all capital letters, fictional legal names. A 1040 form is for tribute paid to Great Britain. So I got a letter from the IRS recently, and they told me that I got to fill out a 1040 form and pay them back. So that's basically me paying the Great Britain. Everything in the United States is for sale: roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, water plants, prisons, airports, etc. Who bought Klamath Lake in California? See Executive Order 12803. It is not the duty of the police to protect you. Their job is to protect the corporation and arrest code breakers. The FCC, CIA, FBI, and NASA, and all other alphabet gangs were never a part of the United States government. Yeah, I don't know where we got that from, where y'all just assumed they was a part of the United States government. Because even when you watch TV, they never told you that. Nobody ever told you that these was government corporations. They're all private. But anyway, even though the U.S. government held shares of stocks and bonds. Anyway, and so we finished the book, y'all. If you purchase this book, it has a whole bunch of links in the back of it. Everything, all the facts that I just read off has sites worded so that you can look up the cases and stuff where those concepts were brought up and spoken on and revealed. And so now that we finished the book, now we're going to get into Brandon Williams' class. We're on day 5 today, y'all. And so now that we're on day 5, let's get there.
Whoop 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 whoop. Video number 5. Welcome back. I got a pink ass shirt on today. Represent. All right, let's just roll right into it. No bullshit. So, as you've probably noticed, throughout this course, it's been pretty slow. We've been going nice and slow. It's like foreplay, okay? Foreplay makes for good sex, generally, for all you Minutemen out there. Now, at this point, video number 5, we're going to crank up the heat a little bit, possibly a little bit. That depends. So just buckle up a little bit, get ready. We're going to be changing the pace a little bit, changing the depth, changing the complexity a little bit on this one. And we're going to do a little deeper dive on this one. We're starting to get into the meat and potatoes. So here we go. So as you're learning, as we've already gone over quite a lot, you have contracted yourself into being a U.S. citizen in Washington, D.C. Okay, so let's do this. This is going to be United States, D.C. Okay, now everyone who's in Washington, D.C., since they're acting as though they're the government, the way that this is supposed to work, okay, is that it doesn't actually work this way, obviously. It sort of kind of does a little bit, but this is the way it's supposed to work. And in the future, when enough people learn all this stuff, this is how it will work, and it'll be beautiful. So whether you're, love government or you're anti-government, it doesn't really fucking matter, because at the end of the day, as long as we get back to the proper trust, none of that's going to matter, because it's going to be great either way, with government, without it, whatever. So these guys are the trustees. And another word for saying trustee, it's almost basically the same word, I believe, is public servant. So if you take the word public servant and you take the word trustee and you think to yourself, okay, so if they are the public servant and they are the trustee, then who is the beneficiaries? So the beneficiaries would be the public, right? But the thing is that when you're filed as a U.S. citizen, you aren't the public. You're a public servant, okay? So everyone in the whole country is pretty much a public servant, and then you have a handful of beneficiaries, okay? Like me, I'm a beneficiary. I annihilated all of my contracts, changed all my statuses, and handled everything really well. And now I'm a beneficiary of the entire government. So the government, it's trust fraud. It's a felony for the government to do absolutely anything to me that does not benefit me. It's pretty nice, actually. So they can't flip the trust on me anymore. You have to understand all this stuff too, though, because it's like they might throw curveballs at you. You got to be able to operate and think and say things and stuff. It's not like you just change your status and it's all fucking hunky-dory. It's not how it works. I mean, 90% of all this is the education and the way in which you carry yourself and, like, you know, the beingness of you as a person, understanding all this and operating under it, and also being of benefit to others, being a trustee now. You become a trustee of other people, not in this respect, but just in the respect of, like, you have the information, you can help others, they can become the beneficiaries. You always have power of choice to choose whether you're going to do that or not. I'm not telling you have to do anything, because that's just a lie. But, you know, ideally, the whole point of this course is to turn you from, this piece of wood that's just drifting down this river, and you're going to turn around now and you're going to become this powerful boat. And then I would ideally like to see other people going along and helping other people out of the river as well. So, but again, power of choice is senior to all of that. So you don't have, I'm not telling you have to. I'm not telling you I would frown on you if you didn't. I'm just saying, once you have a high enough self-esteem and once you really understand all this stuff, that's naturally where people usually wind up. Okay. So you have the situation here. Okay. Now you're here. Generally, everybody pretty much is. And you have all these statutes, and you're a public servant, and you're a trustee, and you don't have any rights, and you only have the statutes that they make and give you. Okay. And you're just kind of stuck there, right? Now, how did you get here? So the way it works is, when you fill out your first W-9 form, okay? So the IRS was just sitting there like this. They weren't doing anything. And then you fill out this form and you sent it in, and they're just sitting there chilling, not doing anything. And they just get this form and they're like, oh, wow, cool. Like, here's a form. And you think in your head, like, oh, I was forced to fill out a W-9 form. Well, actually, in fact, there is no disciplinary process, and there is no trouble that you can get in by literally never submitting any forms at all whatsoever. Meaning, you can go and work for a company and you submit literally nothing, and you start working for them, and there is no repercussion. There's no law. There's no penalty. There's no penal code. There's no nothing that actually penalizes you for filling out nothing. And when I say filling out nothing, I mean literally filling out nothing. Like, you don't fill out a W-4. You don't fill out a W-9. You don't fill out jack shit. You fill out maybe like an application that they give you when you first go there to work or whatever. That's it. There is no laws. There is no penal code. Even for U.S. citizens, there's nothing. Like, you can just literally not fill out anything, and you won't have any problems. You're technically still contracted into this, though, so it gets a little more complicated. So, but just realize at the end of the day, there's nothing forcing you to fill out any of these forms at all whatsoever, and there's no penalties, and there's nothing. So there is penalty of perjury when you sign the form as to the truth of the form, and not even all the forms have that either. You have to look over each individual form, which we'll be getting into more and more and more as we move on with these videos. I'll be getting into a lot of the different forms with you and what they mean. Okay. So, you can be super pissed. You can be this. You can be that. All these organizations and the passport office and the Social Security office and the IRS and all these different places in the Bureau of Consular Affairs, whatever it is, the place that does the passports, all these different centers and organizations, all they do literally is accept whatever it is you tell them. If you told them, I mean, not all of them, like, but to some degree, there's a few different statuses for the IRS, and there's a whole bunch of different statuses for the passport, and we're going to get into all of those different terms and stuff. But you're basically kind of pretty much telling them what you are and where you're at. So it's like people get so mad when they watch these videos, or probably when you're watching these videos, and it's like, dude, like, they tell you what you can and can't like select from. It's not even like hidden. It's like, do you want to be a purple elephant? Do you want to be a green giraffe, or do you want to be a red toucan? And it's like, people don't realize that they're saying red toucan, but they can choose between these different things, and it's actually not very complicated. They don't teach you anything because they say, ignorance of the law is not an excuse, and they say all these different things, and it's like you never go to law classes in any schools or anything like that. So, but just realize, like, this shit is so fucking easy. Like, if the whole thing is designed where, like, the door is literally wide open. There's not even a closed door, a wall. Like, you don't have to, like, pick it, lock, like, nothing. Like, there's just a few doors, and the door is wide open. And, like, if you're a fucking fat ass, like, the literal, like, door jambs are, like, greased with, like, white lithium grease, like, thick grease. So even if you're a fat fuck, you can still just right through the fucking door. It's so easy. It's so fucking easy. I'm going to show it to you. So, with that said, let's get back into this. Let's start getting into some of the terms. I'm going to try to really, really break this down in the simplest fucking humanly possible way I can possibly do it. Okay. But like I said at the beginning of this video, we are going to be stepping it up, in this video. So bear with me. Okay. So here we go. So you already know what the term U.S. citizen means. U.S. citizen means, and this is one of the tax terms, because you saw it on the W-9 form earlier, right? In Section 3, U.S. person. And then if you go down to the definition of that, it has the definition U.S. citizen, okay? So U.S. citizen is someone who lives and works in Washington, D.C. for the government, for the private corporation known as United States, okay? Works for U.S. ... We'll just say for, because they do the same thing, so fuck them. Okay, and then you have California, okay? So here's me, California, okay? So a resident alien, that's term number 2. Resident alien. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this course, if anything was a theory, I would inform you on it. Finding definitions for these words are literally fucking impossible. Like, infuriatingly impossible. And when you look up all the different definitions of these things, you try to trace them down, it's so fucked beyond all comprehension. So I have worked hundreds of hours just trying to sort out these definitions. These are the definitions that I can figure out to the best of my ability after tremendous amount of study. So, this is not like, oh, here's the definition. I'm going to show you some definitions and I'll show you some other things. But this is all just pure chaos and pure smoke and mirrors. And I've tried to piece this together for you as best as I can. I'm very, very sure that these are the definitions, but just keep in mind, these are not like straight out of some code or something like that, super clear-cut definitions, but I'll show you, okay? So a resident alien is someone who lives in Washington, D.C., but does not work for the federal government, okay? Now you have a third term. The third term is non-resident alien. Okay. Now, the third term is what everyone is that does not live in Washington, D.C. or work for the government. And we're going to be getting into that in great detail in this video. And these are the three terms. So let's go over them again. We have U.S. citizen, lives and works for U.S., otherwise known as federal corporation, otherwise known as Washington, D.C., or District of Columbia. It's all the same shit. It's all the same words. You have resident alien, which is someone who lives in Washington, D.C., but doesn't work for the federal government. And then you have non-resident alien. Okay? Now, these words are complicated because resident alien and non-resident alien, people always think, like accountants and always that, all that kind of stuff. Like accountants think that means all of the United States of America, all 50 states. And that's where it gets complicated. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. That's what all accountants think that word means. It's a misunderstood word, a crashing hell, death, misunderstood word that's destroyed their entire industry. So resident alien and non-resident alien has nothing to do with the Republic of the 50 states of the United States of America. It has to do specifically and only with United States, which is Washington, D.C. And I'm actually going to, real quick, I'm going to pull up some case law on that, just in case there are any accountants that are sitting here thinking that I'm full of shit because their entire life is now worthless, I guess, if they want to think that way. So you go down here on my website, you're going to find a bunch of quotes. We're going to go over all of these quotes. But we have here a few quotes. We're going to go over some of these now. We'll go over some of these later as well. The United States government is a foreign corporation with respect to a state. Okay. The Internal Revenue Code is not positive law. It is special law applicable to specific persons in the United States, District of Columbia, who choose to make themselves subject to the requirement of the special laws in the IRC by entering into an employment agreement with the U.S. government, District of Columbia. And then here's the big boy right here. This is the one that's going to sadly crush all you lawyers and accountants just to dust. The laws of Congress in respect to these matters do not extend into the territorial limits of the states, but only have force in the District of Columbia and other places that are within the exclusive jurisdiction of the national government. Now, the United States has other territories, I think like Guam, I think Puerto Rico, and I think there's some other ones as well. Those territories are pretty much owned exclusively by Washington, D.C. So when they say in this quote here, other places that are within the exclusive jurisdiction of the national government, he's in this one, they're referring to all of those territories, right? So resident alien, technically speaking, let's go back over here. So resident alien, technically speaking, now that I think about it, again, because you don't meet a lot of people from these places, resident alien would probably also mean anyone who lives in those territories. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure because you're a resident alien, and we're gonna clear up the word resident here in just a moment. You're a resident alien. You're a foreigner, but you're inside like their world as a resident. Basically, that's kind of what that means, right? And these territories like Guam and Puerto Rico and stuff, it is their world. Those are their world. Okay, so United States, meaning District of Columbia, is just the main headquarters, and then you have the territories that they own and control. It's almost like its own little country with sub-countries, basically, kind of, right? So like you saw on this thing I just showed you here, California is considered a completely foreign country or foreign place to United States or the Washington, D.C. Okay, so that's why you're a non-resident alien. You don't live there. You're not there temporarily. You got nothing to do with Washington, D.C. someone who lives in France is just as much a non-resident alien of United States as someone who lives in Ohio, or someone who lives in California, or someone who lives in Texas, or someone who lives in Montana, or someone who lives in New York, and I could go on. It's all the states, everything. Okay? So if you live in the States, you're a foreigner. You're a non-resident alien. And they don't, it's, like I said, it's almost impossible to find any of these definitions. So let's get into this more. So how do they trick you into being a resident alien? Well, in a lot of ways. So I'm going to show you some of the ways that it happens. Okay. So let me see here. Well, actually, no. First off, we're going to clear up some words here in the in our bad boy Black's Law. Let's see here. Okay. So here's the word non-resident. I'm going to highlight it for you. This is Black's Law 4th edition, Bad Boy Dictionary. One who is not a dweller within jurisdiction in question, not an inhabitant of the state of the forum. Okay. So forum means like the place in which, some kind of like judgment or lawsuits going on, I believe. And then you have jurisdiction, which we've gone over before, right? So if someone says, you're in trouble, you're going to get a speeding ticket because you were in the state of California and you were speeding. And I was never in the state of California. I was actually in Nevada the whole time. It's a very stupid idea, but that's how simple it is. I was non-resident of what the guy is talking about, the law enforcement officer or the judge or whoever. It's like, dude, I'm a non-resident because I was not a dweller within the jurisdiction of what you're talking about at that time when you said I was doing that thing, right? So jurisdiction, again, super, 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 ultra, ultra, ultra important. Like, not as important as trust law, kind of not really as important as contract law, because that's a big boy, real big. But it's like right there up, like a very close number 3 of all the shit in terms of how important it is. Insanely important. And then now with the non-resident and the resident and all this kind of stuff that we're getting into now, this is almost like level 4. We're going down in terms of importance. And it's going to start to kind of fan out more as we go down, right? So non-resident, okay? So you're not a dweller with their jurisdiction in question, right? Now what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the word domicile, because we have a few words here. We have domicile, we have resident, right? This is going to clear all that up, this definition of domicile, okay? So this is the definition I think is the most useful. There's a lot of different ones. The established, fixed, permanent, or ordinary dwelling place or place of residence of a person as distinguished from his temporary and transient, although actual place of residence. It is his legal residence as distinguished from his temporary place of abode, or his home as distinguished from a place to which business or pleasure may temporarily call him. Okay, now this is so important. So let's write this down. I'm going to break all this down. Don't worry about, it's confusing and the definition's confusing. Well, yeah, it's fucking confusing. I mean, this dictionary, Black's Law 4th edition, this is from a long ass time ago. So remember that too. So back when people could actually fucking read, right? So I'm going to break all this down for you. This is where things are going to get more complicated. If you need to watch this several times over, you should. I'm not going to expect everyone to get this part. This is the first part where it's going to start getting a little tough, right? And if you can get it first time, man, good for you. You've really you should do an IQ test. You probably got fucking 140 plus, okay? So if not, then that's fine too, because it took me ages to get this down, okay? So you have the word domicile. That's your big boy permanent place. Then you have resident. Resident means temporary, right? To some degree. Then you have the word that we went over before, which is, I forget how to spell it exactly. I think that's what it is. Sojourn, right? And this is like full blown, like fucking nomad practically, right? And these three words make up locational jurisdiction, right? And jurisdiction is fucking everything in the law. We're going to get into it more and more and more. It's everything. If you're not under their jurisdiction, they literally have no authority to tell you anything or do anything with you at all whatsoever. Okay. Now, if you domicile there, that's the highest form of jurisdiction. It's like, dude, you like really fully live here. You're like permanently here. You're here. You say you're here, etc. Resident. Okay. Well, you're temporarily here. You're kind of here. You're at least here enough to be in the jurisdiction. And then you have sergeant, which is like, it's tough. It's tough for them to get jurisdiction over somebody who's in that category or who says they're in that category. Again, they only, where am I? Am I on the, here. So back to me. They only take, and you have to fucking understand this, dude. Like you have to understand this. They only accept that of which you fucking tell them. They don't tell you anything. They give you terms, and the terms are confusing, yes. And they have these weird words, and yes, the words are confusing, but they don't push anything on you. They don't force anything on you. They don't do shit. They sit there with a fucking cucumber jammed up their fucking ass, and they wait for you to tell them what you are. And it's like, you can get pissed and blame them and blame everybody else because you're a fucking victim-minded, weak, pathetic fuck. Or you can sit there and you can say, fuck, dude, like, okay, like, you got me, boy. And just laugh it off and clear up some of the words and change your status. They're just sitting there waiting for you to submit paperwork changing your situation and your status and these words. They're just waiting. They're just waiting. They won't fight you. They won't make it difficult. They won't fuck with you. They won't do jack shit. So like I said, it's an open door, greased doorway. Walk right through that motherfucker. So easy. So again, yes. Are they tricking you? To some degree, yes. Yes. Do you have a right to be mad? I mean, yeah, I guess you do. But at the same time, it's like, bro, you can't sign a contracts all day long every single day and not read any of it and then just one day wake up and be mad about that shit that you signed. Like you didn't need to sign anything. I mean, so the whole point of this course is to increase your ability to free you, to put you in the driver's seat of your own life, to help you, to help other people. You know what I mean? So the victim, tricked me into being a freaking alien. It's fucking pathetic. It's pathetic. And I want to be so fucking clear about that. It's like literally disgusting. It's like, it's childish, it's pathetic, and it's like fucked. And you're never going to make it in any of the shit that I'm teaching you if you're going to take that kind of fucking mentality, okay? That's it. Domicile. Permanent place, resident, temporary to some degree, sojourn, nomad, okay? That's the best one. That's the best one, especially if you really are. I mean, that's like fucking dope. You just tell people like, nah, bitch, just rolling through. I'm going to get me some bitches, get me some money, and then I'm getting the fuck out. And that's fine. So, and here's the next part that's going to back to, I was kind of trying to buffer this by yelling at you because this is going to piss you off a lot. So the United States is a private for-profit corporation known as United States, known as Washington, D.C., known as District of Columbia, which we've already gone over, okay? But it's a little deeper than that. And they've done things a little trickier. And this is the part where I'm glad I yelled at you because this is the part where you're going to get a little more irritated, okay? Now, the United States, the District of Columbia, they've filed a bunch of subcorporations. Guess what they are? They're called State of California. They're called County of Los Angeles. They're called City of Los Angeles. So these terms are sub-corporations. Sub-corporations of DC. So you have California. California is the actual fucking state. State of California is a private for-profit corporation that's a sub-corporation of United States. Now, it has to do all with this. It's got everything to do with this, okay? Now, let's say there's a form, and the form says, are you a resident or are you a citizen or do you live in or do you domicile in the state, and the capital letter S gives it away, the state of California? Of course I am. Of course. Now, where is state of California located? It's located in a filing cabinet in Washington, D.C. Little smiley face filing cabinet for you. So state of California is a sub-corporation that's physically located in Washington, D.C. County of Los Angeles, if they've incorporated that for any reason, that's located in the United States, Washington, D.C. And the city of Los Angeles, if the city, the word city is capitalized, it's a proper noun. That is a private for-profit corporation, and the city of Los Angeles is located, you guessed it, in Washington, D.C. So, yeah. It's pretty funny, huh? You know, the CA, when you abbreviate the state and you say CA, like when you're writing mail. We're gonna get into mail later, but when you write CA like this, guess where that's located? You guessed it, Washington, D.C. So you have to be. You know, you can be kind of weird about it if you want to, but you say I live on the physical land of California. I do not live in the state of California. I live on the unincorporated original land mass known as California. When you say it like that, you don't need to say it exactly like I just said. You don't need to like write that down, but you're getting the idea. Like, you're not in the state of California. You're not a citizen. You're not even a denizen. You're not a resident. You don't domicile there. You're a sojourn of on the land, the physical land mass known as California, not the state. Now, if you're going to say state of California, you would use a lowercase s. That's a non-proper noun. That's why even on my website and stuff like that, when you see the word state national, the state's not capitalized because the capital S means this. It's a proper noun. It's a private for-profit corporation. State with a lowercase s it means literally just like a location of land, like a landmass that has boundaries. Like that's state, right? So it's not a proper noun, state. It's just state. It's just a normal word or whatever, right? So let's see here. So when you clean all this up and you change your status and you do all the good stuff, you're going to be a non-resident alien. You're actually a non-resident alien of state of California. You're a non-resident alien of United States. You're a non-resident alien of Washington, D.C. You're a non-resident alien of any incorporated elements of County of Los Angeles. You're a non-resident alien of City of Los Angeles. So I live in Los Angeles. I live in the landmass. I live on the landmass known as Los Angeles. But I am a non-resident alien to City of Los Angeles. And this is how you can get out of paying city tax. The City of Los Angeles has a city tax. When you pay the city tax, the payment, going like this with money, is action, which verifies, validates, and finalizes the fact that you're saying, yes, I live in Washington, D.C., and I am a resident or I domicile in Washington, D.C., and I agree with the fact that I have to pay these taxes, here is my tax money. Every time you pay taxes, you're locking in that contract. Boom! You're locking it in, okay? Now, the way that they think this all works, based off of the contract and based off of all this stuff, right, is that, and this is going to blow your fucking mind, okay? When you say all this stuff, but you're located over here, they know you're located over here, right? They're just trying to play stupid. So what they do is they say that because you signed all these documents, because you say you're a U.S. citizen, because you pay these taxes, because you do all these things, boom, 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 you domicile here. Well, actually, no. Now that I think about it, it might be the other way around. Maybe they say that you domicile here. Because remember, domicile is like where you intend to go back to. It's your actual home. And then you're a resident here. So they know you domicile there. They're like, oh, yeah, he domiciles there, but he's a resident here. Because, again, resident, let's get into it. Like it says here, it says... Here's another one. Domicile and residence, however, are frequently distinguished in that, up top here, right here. Domicile and residence, however, are frequently distinguished in that domicile is the home, the fixed place of habitation, while residence is a transient place of dwelling, right? So you have your permanent home, and then you have your transient place of dwelling, okay? So that's why they call it a resident alien, right? You domicile in California, but you are a transient, what was it again? A transient place of dwelling would be Washington, D.C. So since you're a resident, and since you're there, you're in their jurisdiction, because this is all jurisdiction-related locations, right? Now that you're in their jurisdiction, you have to follow the U.S. Code, the Code of Federal Regulations, the Internal Revenue Code. You actually don't even have to follow the Internal Revenue Code, because it actually, there's a... Do I want to get into this now? Not so much. Yeah, you know what? Fuck it. So... The Internal Revenue Code is a funny one, because that one so when you say that you live in, or you work in, or you're connected to, or you're a resident of Washington, D.C., there's a lot of codes that you actually are tied into and contracted into. And technically speaking, the Internal Revenue Code is one of them. The problem is, I'm going to find this for you right now. Oh, yeah, we can go over a couple things here, actually. Check this out. We'll go over a couple things here about this whole situation. So 19 USC Section 81O, which is talking about the District of Columbia. Part A, persons allowed to reside in that zone. It says no person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. So that's why it's the word resident. They don't even really give you a term for domiciling there. It's almost as if like everyone who's there, even in their own eyes and in their own terms, is just there like temporarily, or is just kind of like it's as if no one really lives there legally. It's kind of weird, right? But that's not even what I was going to show you. The main thing I was going to show you was I gotta find it. Gotta find it. I know I'll find it. I know I'll find it. Oh, here it is. Okay. So, the Internal Revenue Code, how does it relate to U.S. citizens? How does it relate to residents? How does it relate to everybody, right? Even if you're in the fucking system, this one's funny. And that's why I'm bringing this up, right? 26 USC. Let's just type in anything 16 because we're not even going to go there. So oops, do I have you guys up here? Yeah, I do. Okay, good. So let's do full screen on this one. And hopefully I won't lose my track of my. So you go here to US code. So this is Title 26, and then it has all the different subsections, A, B, C. Title 26 is the Internal Revenue Code, the IRC. And you can see that because when you go to the USC, you can see the table of contents for the entire United States Code. How cool is that? You have Congress, President, flag, the seal, seat of government, the states, the government organization and employees, agriculture, aliens and nationality. Ooh, that's probably a good one to look through. Coast Guard, commerce and trade. Now, the United States Code, all of this basically only applies to U.S. citizens. It only applies to people who are public servants. It doesn't really apply to state nationals. It doesn't really apply to humans that live on the original, what's called de jure. So the word de jure is normally used to refer to the actual original United States of America, and then de facto is another word that's used often to describe the United States and the Washington, D.C. and the whole corporate element. So you have corporate, which is de facto, and then you have, which means like by fact or by legal or by artificial law. And then you have de jure, which is by law or by God's law. So I hope that makes sense. De jure is by law, original, non-incorporated. De facto is incorporated, by law, the weird stuff, basically. So this is all de facto study, right? So Title 26 right here, Internal Revenue Code. Now, right at the very, very beginning of the code, it's called construction of title, right? Now, what that means is the construction of the entire title, Title 26, the whole code. So this is Title 26, U.S. Code 7806. 7806. 26 USC 7806. Construction of title, right? So this is involving the whole goddamn Title 26. Now, this is very, very confusing to read, but you don't even really need to understand it all that terribly well. But no inference, implication, or presumption of legislative construction shall be drawn or made by reason of the location of grouping of any particular section or provision or portion of this title, nor shall any table of contents, table of cross-references, or similar outline, analysis, or descriptive matter relating to the contents of this title be given any legal effect. The preceding sentence also applies to the side notes and ancillary tables contained in the various prints of this act before its enactment into law. So there is something called an enactment clause. An enactment clause is a short phrase that introduces the main provisions of a law enacted by a legislature, right? So a legislature has to actually enact the law. The entire, this is going to blow your fucking mind, dude. The entire Title 26 was never and has never been enacted into law, even for people who are tied into this whole system. So even if you're currently a U.S. citizen, the Internal Revenue Code doesn't really exist. Now, that gets a little more complicated, though. The Internal Revenue Code, if you're tied into it and you're paying and you've been paying, you are pretty heavily contracted into it. You can't just stop. You have to do something else called a revocation of election, which I'm going to be going over pretty soon here. There's actually some actual work that you have to do to uncontract yourself and disconnect from being tied in and contracted into this whole code. Okay. So I will be going over that, but just realize that my original point was when you're doing all this and you're contracted into the United States and you're considered a resident, you're domiciling wherever you are at, Ohio or Utah or whatever you're at, but you're a resident of a temporary domicile, a temporary living situation in the United States legally. You have all these different codes and statutes, but like the Internal Revenue Code is a strange one because that's the only one that I know of that doesn't even have an enactment clause. It doesn't even for people who are public servants. So even if you did live in Washington, D.C., even if you did work for the federal government, literally, like, let's say you worked in the fucking Capitol building and you lived down the street, technically speaking, you still wouldn't be contracted into the Internal Revenue Code unless, of course, you just did it anyways. I mean, you can contract into it. Contracts are higher on the scale. A person's power of choice is higher on the scale than anything else. So if I wanted to stick my hand in a wood chipper, I have the right to do that. If I wanted to stick my dick in a light socket, I have the right to do that. If I wanted to contract myself into the Internal Revenue Code, I have a right to do that. So it's not really one of those things where it's like, now that you know, it's like gone. Now let's say you're in a different country like France or something, and you're going to come over and you're going to work for the government here in Washington, D.C. And you've never contracted into the Internal Revenue Code ever before. You've never filed any tax returns, nothing, right? Ever before. You can touch down in Washington, D.C. You can start your job and never fill out any Internal Revenue Code papers, nothing. Not a W-9, not a W-4, not anything at all whatsoever. And there's nothing that you just show them this one point. Do I still have you guys on the computer here? Yeah, I do. You just show them this one point. You say, well, sir, Title 26, Section 7806, Construction of Title, Section B states that there hasn't been any enactment clause for the Internal Revenue Code, and I would prefer to not sign a W-9 or a W-4 or anything like that. And unless, of course, sir, you can show me any sort of law or any sort of anything that would prove to me that the Internal Revenue Code has been enacted into law, or if you can show me that there would be any disciplinary procedure that would be done for me for not filling out those forms, I'd be more than happy to fill those forms out for you. But at this point in time, I will not be filling out those forms. And they might get mad, they might get pissed, they might yell and scream, but they can't show you shit, man. There ain't shit to show you. So it's pretty funny how all that kind of works out, right? So that's the good news. I mean, that's why a lot of people, when they're starting to become a state national, it's the first thing they do is they send in their paperwork. It's called a revocation of election, which we're going to get into. They send that bad boy in right away because they're even though you're contracted in, this is the one part you don't have to you can get out of this contract, boom, right away, even before you even sever this contract. So that's really, really nice. Now I'm going to show you something else on this. We're going to be going through a lot of different forms. We've already gone through the W-9 form, but what we're going to be going through now, let me just see. Okay. I'm going to give you a big boy tip. I'm going to give you a real big boy tip. So here we go. So you should be able to see the screen now. Yep. So like I said before, let's go. Hope this is not too much for you guys. I'm trying to ease you into the sexual act. You know what I mean? So again, these are the trustees here, the public servants. And then the people of the United States of America, the de jure United States of America, these people down here, we are the beneficiaries. Trustees, beneficiaries. And they fuck it all up and they fuck us over and they do stupid shit and they steal from us and blah, 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 blah. That's not really, that's not how it's supposed to be. And honestly, if we just clean that up, just that one aspect, we wouldn't need no government or anti-government or any of those things. So people, oh, you're a libertarian, or oh, you're a conservative, or fucking hate that shit. Sound like they have a fucking giant 9-inch black dick in their fucking throat. It's pathetic. I'm not any of those things. You know what? When you have a form, let's say you're given a form. I'm about ready to show you this form right now. You don't need this form. You can just write up fucking whatever you want and sign it and send it in and tell them whatever the fuck you want to tell them. Forms are offers of ways to do things in an organized way. You can cross shit out. Now, like on a passport form, it tells you specifically you can't do certain things and you need to do certain things. It's a little more intense, right? But pretty much everything else, especially IRS forms, again, they're just chilling, dude. The IRS is just sitting here chilling, like having a cigarette, and you just send them shit, and they just accept whatever the fuck you send them. Literally, like people are like, it's just you to the IRS, and I'm this and I'm that. And it's like, and then you watch this course, and now you're gonna be all fucking pissed off about the IRS, dude. They're literally just chilling. They're just sitting there chilling, like they're doing nothing. They're doing fucking nothing. Like you send them a paper, they go, great, thanks, and they update your information. You send them money, great, thanks, they cash your check. You send them something else. Thanks. That's it. And then if you're contracted in and you sent them something that you're telling them you owe them $8,000, and then you only pay them $2,000, all they do is they just come up and yo, bro, like you said you're going to give us $8,000, like you only gave us $2,000, like what's the deal? That's all they do. That's all they do. And it's like, and people are so scared, and people, oh my God. It's like, dude, you incriminated yourself. You told them how much you owed. You broke the whole thing down for them. You signed it under penalty of perjury. You told them you were a U.S. citizen. It's like, dude, I'm sorry, but you know what it really comes down to? It's sort of like that term that you hear, like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. How about fool me 486,000 times? Where do you point the finger on that one? Yeah, you take the finger and you jam it up your own fucking ass. That's what you do. So not that I'm trying to like side with the IRS or something like that. I'm just, there really is, like, we don't need a civil war, man. We don't need any of that. We don't need any bullshit. Okay. What we need people to just wake up, take a deep breath, change their status, and move on with your fucking life and educate your friends and family. That's what it's all about. It's not about fucking being a victim, being a fucking cunt, being a fucking cocksucker. It's just stupid. So like I've said before, and like I'll continue to say, I am the founder of the Amnesty Coalition, and this is why. This is exactly why. Revenge has no part of what I teach and what I stand for. So that's it. Let's get back to this. Now, this is going to be the first time that I'm going to be going over with you. We already went over ordering your long form birth certificates. You should have done that already. If you didn't, you're fucking lazy. If you can't afford it, that's extremely depressing. Extremely depressing, because it's like $55. Like, that's depressing as fuck. Like fuck you. Literally, that's so depressing. So you should have ordered those right away. That's going to take like 3 or 4 months to come to you, maybe longer, and you're going to need those. So I hope you ordered those. Now, this is the second thing. If you're already contracted into paying taxes and you're working for a company and blah 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 blah, this is the first thing you can do to start taking actions if you feel comfortable. Again, don't do anything unless you feel comfortable about it. Okay? Now, they're the trustees and we're the beneficiaries. So we have this form here on the computer that I'm showing you right now. It's called the W-8-BEN form. Now, BEN stands for, you guessed it, beneficiary. So what's happening is this is the beginning of this is the simplest and fastest way to begin the process of hanging up your hat as a trustee and chilling and retiring as a beneficiary. Okay. So the W8BEN form basically means you are a foreign beneficial owner of whatever money that you're going to be getting from this thing, right? So it says here, name of individual who is the beneficial owner, right? This would be, I do all lowercase. So Brandon-Joe : Williams, comma, beneficiary. Okay? Country of citizenship. You can do America unincorporated. My dryer is going pretty hard. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, doing some laundry. I hope that really annoys the fuck out of you. So country of citizenship, America unincorporated, or you can put United States of America if you want to. United. Just put America. It's actually even better. Just put America. Anything that says United States in it is fucked. Permanent residence. So do not use a P.O. box or in care of address. So this is back to me. So this is actually where it gets complicated. So let's go back to the form real quick. You have two different ones. You have mailing address and you have permanent residence address. So what they're asking you here, and again, it's super complicated on purpose, is they're asking you the permanent address is the domicile address and the mailing address is the residence address. So yeah, that's why they're asking you for, just you look at this form, why the fuck are they asking me two different addresses? That's why. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to do permanent resident address. Let's put you back on so you can see what I'm doing. Permanent resident address. You're going to do rural free delivery. City or town. You're going to do Glendale. And then country is America unincorporated. And then mailing address, if different from above. Now, this one, you can do the CO if you want to. Include postal code where appropriate. Yeah, you're not going to put the postal code. You can do Glendale, comma, California spelled all the way out like that. And then mailing address, if you want to put your actual address, you would do something like CO, which means I don't live here. I'm not a resident here. I simply receive mail here, which is a big championship way of doing it. 1, 2, 3, purple, Monkey Lane. And then city or town is Glendale, California. And then you can either just type in no zip. You can do zip exempt. You can do whatever you want. Basically, the zip code is another way that they pin you into being a resident of Washington, D.C. You don't want to use zip codes. You don't want to use the CA or the abbreviated state terms. You want to use the full state, zip exempt, or just don't type it at all. Country, America, unincorporated. Unincorporated. Not sure if you noticed, but incorporated, that means corpse. Corp-orated. Corpse-orated. It's a dead entity that needs people, that needs, men and women to give it life. That's what corporation means. Okay. U.S. Taxpayer identification number, if required. See instructions. I don't know on this one. I don't know if I would put my U.S. taxpayer identification number, SSN or I-10. Where are the instructions on this? I'm curious. Let's see here. W8BEN. I'm doing this live so you can see what I do. And that way, if you're ever, you're going to be hitting this kind of shit all the time. Instructions for W8BEN. Here we go. Let's see. Purpose of form. You can read all these. Who must provide these? definitions. They make this as complicated as possible on purpose, which I understand that's upsetting. Non-resident alien individual. U.S. person, withholding agent, specific instructions. Which line was that? That's line number 5. Line 4, line 3, line 5. Let's see. Where is it? Line 5. If you have a social security number, enter it here. To apply for an SSN, get a form SS5 from the SSA. If you don't have one or you're not eligible to get one, you can get an individual taxpayer identification number. To claim certain treaty benefits, you must complete line 5 by submitting an SSN or ITIN online. Okay, let me just blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Okay, so basically it says you should put it in. So I would go ahead and put it in. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 4. Foreign tax identifying number, don't have anything like that. Reference number, I don't have anything like that. Date of birth, go ahead and put your date of birth exactly how they have it here. They have 2 digits for the month, 2 for the day, and 4 for the year. And I'm not putting in my actual one here. I'm just going to make something up. Okay. That's how you type in all of this upper part. Okay. Rule-free delivery just means you're not anywhere in the you're not in their jurisdiction, you're not in their zone, and there's nothing that they can do to pull you into their zone. Another thing you can do, actually, another thing about it, what I would do on the zip code for permanent is I would do 5 zeros. Because when you do the passport, I'll show you how to do the passport later. That's how you do it on the passport, is you do 5 zeros for the zip code. So might be good to do it here, or just take it off, or do zip exempt. I mean, you can do all sorts of things. It's not really like, the whole point is I'm trying to show you how to actually understand this, right? So I certify that the beneficial owner is a resident of America, unincorporated, within the meaning of the income tax treaty between the United States and that country. Special rates and conditions, blah, 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 paragraph. You don't need to put anything in here. This is just involving like, what is the treaty section? You can put, but here it says, what percentage of withholding are you going to have? Well, 0. They're not going to take any taxes out of your shit, right? And then it says specify type of income. You can say everything, or you can say all, or you can say whatever you want here. Explain the additional conditions in the blah, blah, blah that meets the eligibility for rate of withholding. I just do not applicable. And then, let's see here. I certify that I have the capacity to sign for the person identified on line 1 of this form. I don't. Oh, whoops. I didn't even have you in on that whole thing, I don't think. Okay, let's go back. So, you have number 1. We did my name, Brandon -Joe Williams, beneficiary. Country of citizenship. We have America unincorporated. Section number 3. We have permanent residence address. Do not use a PO box or care of address. Rule-free delivery, which means not in their jurisdiction, not in their zone. Non-resident alien. Glendale, California 00000. Country is America unincorporated. Mailing address is care of 123 Purple Monkey Lane, because you're not living there, you're just receiving mail there, which is what care of means. City, state, Glendale, California, and then country is America unincorporated. U.S. taxpayer identification number is 123 12 1234, because we did look at that instructions, and I wasn't able to really find anything useful besides the fact that they actually do really want it, and it doesn't say it's optional. It technically is still optional, but I would just put it in there. That way they can track down and file it with your the rest of your paperwork. Because once you file your revocation of election, and you start to really uncontract with them entirely. This is just the first step. You want to make sure that they can locate your files. They're not going to do shit, dude. Like they're literally just going to file your shit. Like they're just waiting for you to send all this shit in, and then they're going to file it for you. It's not like there's so much information out there. Like, oh, they're going to like never file it, and they're going to give you a hard time, and they're going to. You know what they sent me? I sent them all sorts of shit, man. I sent them like responses to the shit they were sending me. I sent them so much shit. They sent me 3 letters. The first, no, it was 2 letters. The first letter was, thank you so much. We're reviewing everything that you've sent in. We need an additional 60 days. Please just wait. We need more time to review everything. And the second letter that they sent me was, we need more time to review everything you sent in. At this point, we really have no clue how much more time we're going to need. It could be God knows how long, and we'll just get back to you at some point in the future, which basically means they're never going to look at it, or they're just filing everything, or it's basically just an acknowledgement. Essentially, that's what I got when I sent everything in. So, I didn't send in a W-8BEN because I'm not working for an employer in that kind of way where you have like payroll and all that. It's a little bit different for me in different ways, depending on I have a lot of different income. I don't have income. I have earnings or private property, which we're going to go into later. But yeah. So this is the W-8BEN. This swaps you over to beneficiary. This is your first step. It's very, very easy to do this. Now, you don't send this into the IRS according to the form. It says here, you give this form to any withholding agent. So a withholding agent, I mentioned that in the previous video, is basically, you know how companies, when they have payroll, they hold the money back from payroll, and they pay like the Social Security, and they pay the FICA or whatever, and they pay all these different taxes and all this other stuff. That person, that term is in reference to the agent meaning someone who works on behalf of another. So literally a withholding agent is literally an IRS agent that is employed by the IRS and works for the IRS in exchange for no money, no income, no earnings, nothing. It is a volunteer employee of the Internal Revenue Service working as an actual agent. So an agent, you're working on behalf of them to withhold money from people's paychecks. Withholding agent. You're a slave. It's basically a euphemism for slave. It's someone who works for free as a slave for the federal government for no money, for no income. So it says here, furthermore, I authorize this form to be provided to any withholding agent. There's this one box. I certify that I have the capacity to sign for the person identified on line 1 on this form. I don't think you have to check that if you're signing it for yourself, but I would probably just check it anyways. And then signature. Now, I guess I kind of have to tell you how to sign this. I was going to go into signatures and stuff later on, but you fill this form out just like this, and then you come down here, and then what you're going to do is on the signature form, you're going to do, I guess we'll get into this now. I wasn't expecting to get into this now, but here we go. So, since a lot of people are going to want to do this, because what's going to happen is once you give this to your withholding agent, wherever you work, boom, they're not taking taxes out of your paycheck anymore. And actually, for any employers that are out there listening to this, they're going to love this. So it says right here, a W-8BENE form. So if you're a withholding agent, you're going to, once someone gives you a W-8BEN form, you as the employer fill out the W-8BEN-E, which stands for employer. This one here I can't find the form quickly, but the W8BENE form will eliminate you having to pay your portion of their payroll taxes that you match. So you're like, whoa, yeah, boy. It's fucking hot shit. If you do this with all your employees, they make more money and you make more money and it's all legal, right? Now it's a little bit tricky because this is just the first step to handling the contract. So, you can do this step, but if you're going to do a W8BEN, you really should move forward with your revocation of election and cleaning up the contract entirely. You don't want to be kind of halfway in and halfway out. Not good. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't recommend that either. So we'll go over the revocation of election later. But for right now, you have the W8BEN, fill it out like this. And then at the bottom, when you sign it, you're going to sign it. You're going to sign it like this. You're going to do, and I'll cover what this means. Let me put you back here. You're going to sign it like this, without prejudice. First name, dash or hyphen middle name, colon last name. I do cursive on an autograph. Here's an autograph. So a signature is when you're signing on behalf of a corporation or trust or some kind of entity, and an autograph is when you, as the living human, man or woman, is doing this. So it's actually called an autograph. Okay. Brandon-Joe Williams, comma, beneficiary. So you're going to sign it, your first name, hyphen your middle name, colon your last name, comma, and then the word beneficiary, right? Because again, W8BEN. You're the beneficiary. You're just saying you're the beneficiary. So, I mean, might as well sign it as the beneficiary. That's what you're doing. Let's go back here. So you're going to sign it like that, and then you're going to date it, and then you're going to print the name of the signer. Even on the printed name, I would still do Brandon-Joe Williams, beneficiary. Fuck it. Anywhere you can do it. So there you go. Sign that bad boy. Give it to your withholding agent wherever you work, and then by law they have to file it. And if they don't, you can actually call the IRS and complain to the IRS that they're not accepting your tax forms. And I believe that's a felony. Eesh. Feel sorry for the poor bastard getting involved in that one. The IRS will chase up the company to make sure that your form gets properly filed. Because again, they are tricky fucks in terms of some of the definitions that they use and stuff like that, but they just sit there and fucking accept forms. That's it, dude. Like, that's all they're doing, literally. So let's see. The W8BEN form is completed. So you can fill it out. You can submit it to your withholding agent, your HR, or your whatever you have at your company. And then they'll stop taking a lot of the taxes out of your paycheck. And that should increase your income by, depending on what you do and what tax bracket you're in and how much taxes are taken out, man, this could really increase your income. This could increase your income like 20 or 30% fucking tomorrow, literally. So yeah. Pretty hot. That one is the beginning of saying I'm a non-resident alien and changing your status as per those three steps. Oh, we still got to go over without prejudice. That's what I'm missing. Okay, let's do it. The signature. So it's UCC 1-308. Memorize that one. A party with explicit reservation of rights performs or promises performance or assents to performance in a manner demanded or offered by the other party does not thereby prejudice the rights reserved. Such words without prejudice, under protest, or the like are sufficient. So without prejudice is basically a way that when you sign documentation, you're giving an explicit reservation of rights. You're saying that I am a human being. I And I hold my human rights to be of value. And if there's anything in this that could construe or give you the idea that I am giving away my human rights, I am unaware of my human rights or don't want my human rights, that is false. I want my human rights. I desire my human rights. I love my human rights. I know my human rights, and I am reserving all of them. And no matter what this thing is, or no matter how it could ever be construed in law, I am never under any circumstances giving away or allowing any sort of legal encroachment of any of my human rights. That's what you're saying when you sign without prejudice. So sign everything. Sign everything without prejudice. Without prejudice, Brandon-Joe Williams, beneficiary. And that's like saying, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a man, I'm a woman, not a person, not a birthing person, not a trust, not an all caps name, not a franchise, not a bullshit thing, not a corporation, not any of these things. I am not these things. I am not these things. I am not these things. I am a man. I am a man. I am a woman. I am a woman. I have rights. And that's basically essentially what you're saying when you do this. Okay. Good. I think that's it for this video. I really heated it up on this one. Hope you guys are tracking. I know there was one part of this video that didn't have the thing up, but oh well. I do a one-shot deal on all these videos. I don't like shooting them over and over again. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like I just kind of go for it and just say fuck it. So whatever. I'm just gonna keep it like it is, and fucking that's gonna be it. So I hope it's useful for you guys. I hope this one was good. You may need to go over this one a few times, but we are going to be getting into all this into more detail coming up very soon. I will be going over the revocation of election with you in detail. There are organizations and companies that I will be telling you about that can help you with that process as well to make it super ultra simple. But the W8BEN and the W8BENE are the best and quickest ways to start putting a lot of extra money in your pocket, and to also at the same time see. A lot of people who get into all this stuff and who ask me questions and stuff, it's all about money, 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 money. But really, honestly, at the end of the day, in my opinion, and I think it's a fact, I don't even think it's just my opinion. What's more important than the money is the contract, because the contract is where the true freedom is. Even if you had $27 billion, if you're still contracted in, you're a fucking slave, period. End of discussion, right? So if I had a choice between $27 billion and being contracted into the system, or absolutely no money at all whatsoever, and I'm talking not even a penny to my name, but all contracts fully severed, I would much rather have all of the contracts fully severed than the money. Because people say like, oh, money is freedom. No, it's not even remotely. In a way, sort of, kind of, it is a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I'm not delusional, but really at the end of the day, freedom only comes from cleaning up your contracts. And there is no other way to do it at all whatsoever. Money does not, will money help you clean up your contracts? Yes, technically that's true. I've spent a whole hell of a lot of money cleaning up all my contracts, way more than you will. So I've done all sorts of crazy advanced shit and like testing things and like programs and projects, and I've spent probably like $19,000 on all this stuff. So for me, it's kind of a rare, unique thing. But you can probably get a revocation of election done for like maybe $500 to $1,500 if you want someone to help you, or maybe even less, maybe even like $200, $250. It depends. To get your new passports, like $300 if you want to get the priority processing and the overnight shipping. This stuff doesn't really need to cost that much money. So you can say like, oh, well, having more money allows you to have access to your freedoms and stuff like that. I mean, really, I would say like to open up a trust, to do your revocation of election, to do your passport, to do like everything we're going to be talking about in this course, on the cheap end, maybe, a couple $1,000 over time, or maybe even as low as like $1,200 for everything. And then it goes as high as, as much as I've paid, which is to do all sorts of advanced, super crazy shit. And you're spending maybe $18,000. To me, $18,000 for everything that I've gotten, total freedom, total freedom. I mean, there is absolutely not a single statute practically on the entire planet that I am contracted into at all whatsoever. There's a few little tiny ones that I'm kind of cleaning up still, but really ultimately, it's fucking amazing. I mean, 18 grand for what I've done, I think I would gladly pay many times more than that for this kind of a thing. So, money. Do I feel like these multi-billionaires like Elon Musk and all these guys really have total freedom? No, they do not. They do not. They're actually slaves, just like all the rest of us. The only possible fucking way that you can no longer be a slave is by killing all of these contracts and educating yourself and placing yourself in a different state of being. And that is it. And it has nothing to do with money besides the cost of actually doing it. But it's really not that much. I truly believe in the power of a human being when they really want something and they set their mind to something. It just kind of happens. All human beings have that innately built into them. And for how much this could cost you, I don't care who you are or where you are in any area of the world, of the country, you give yourself enough necessity to put together what needs to be put together to make this happen. And it's not some astronomical number. It's definitely not as much as buying a used car or something like that. So for most people, for me, it's more than that, but I'm a rare case. You're not going to do all the stuff that I've done. So there you go. That's video number 5. See you guys at video number 6.